Was Dr. Samuel Loomis a shame doctor, covering his own mistakes due to his only patient going on a killing spree?
Did you know?
Yeah, I knew.
Well, Halloween 1 doesn't exactly relay enough information to form that judgment, but as the Halloween franchise begins to unravel from one installment to the next, Dr. Loomis's character becomes further etched out.
I've said this before, I think you're the one who needs mental help.
Loomis, for those who don't know, is almost an extension of Michael Myers. I once heard him be referred to as the real boogeyman, or at least one of the worst psychiatrists in horror film history.
And you. So what have you done? I haven't done anything. You let him out!
Using somebody as bait, as if the apprehension of Michael Myers is more important than the safety of the people of Haddonfield, and ready to open fire on somebody who looks, fair enough, quite like Michael Myers. Shout out Ben Tramer. But I'm not so sure the question is that easy to answer, because we know John Carpenter had no intention of ever diving so deep into the mind of this psychiatrist.
On the other hand, I think Halloween 2 is an abomination and a horrible movie. I was really disappointed in it.
But the obvious to state is that Michael Myers wasn't an ordinary patient, and maybe judging Loomis on his results of pursuit of somebody like him might not be so fair, but it's fun to at least talk about. 6-year-old Michael Myers was admitted to Smithsgrove Sanitarium on November 6, 1963, for the murder of his older sister Judith on Halloween night, not even a week prior.
Requested Dr. Foster's analysis.
I've spent 4 hours a day. 4 hours a day with this boy. Every day. For 6 months.
Loomis suggested Michael be moved to a maximum security ward located at Litchfield, Illinois. And now we jump some time ahead. Seeing Michael Myers turn 21 years old on the 19th of October 1978, he was to appear in court on his birthday for trial. The trial date was pushed back further by 2 weeks, in which Michael used this as an opportunity to escape Smithsgrove Sanitarium on October 30th, 1978. This is where, on screen, we begin to watch alongside the mind of Dr. Samuel Loomis.
I'm trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
It's wrong in any way to cast responsibility to his carer, but a possibility is this psychiatrist was not doing his job well enough, and thus many people's lives were lost. But again, Michael is the evil, not Dr. Loomis. Outside of the crazy depths he had gone in apprehending Michael Myers, Loomis's inability to help or connect with a patient he had worked with for 8 years sparks the question, why another clinician hadn't been assigned a case?
There were parts of it which I couldn't actually accept. As there are parts of the script which I'm now doing for John, which I can't accept. But I have to bring myself round to seeing it in his way because it's his film.
I get this is fictional, but a real-life playthrough would have been grounds for passing Michael onto a psychiatrist who could approach him from a different angle. Is it a case that nobody could help Michael, or Loomis just couldn't?
What does you fellas usually do? Fire a warning shot, right?
He might have been right in seeing Michael Myers as some sort of evil and not a human, but that doesn't make seeing him such right. Loomis refers to Michael as it, not him, and you would wonder what kind of efficacy that approach would have on a patient, no less a kid. Seeing somebody as an embodiment of evil can hardly be a helpful approach of being a carer. Whether we're meant to read into the effects of a psychiatrist painting a child or a man as major evil and not a person is outside of the story which we've been told, but in a normal practice would surely be a conflict of interest in this industry and the responsibility of the state. In the case of Dr. Sartain, it puts perspective on the fact that Loomis isn't actually an evil doctor at all, but his care for Michael may have been lackluster for what was expected in this industry. When your mode of caring for a child is a prescription of Thorazine, you would wonder what exactly were the other ways in which you were balancing whatever issues Michael had going on. Given it's an antipsychotic, alone taking it wouldn't be the answer. In the chemical sense, Thorazine or chlorpromazine can, and I emphasize can, prevent the reuptake of dopamine and provide mild antidepressive effects. But in today's generation, the practice of giving more power to sedation rather than intravenous therapy would be looked down upon. But again, this is the past, and since then, Thorazine itself has been discontinued. But in the case for Michael Myers, it isn't up to myself or somebody even qualified as a chemist to try and argue what was the right choice for a child murdering his sister. It may have been antipsychotics. But practices change, and it seemed like Dr. Loomis wanted to keep Michael locked away and sedated until the day he died. That's the worry, because maybe that wasn't the right call. And I am still on the page that this is a film, but we're judging a character which is set on a real life profession with real life protocols and real guidelines to what is and isn't appropriate. An important factor is that there are numerous writers from the first to the sixth Halloween film, with each new writer having complete control to change the motives and characteristics of this Doctor. And the films after the first storyline only further change his basic moral principles.
I'm not afraid. Fool! I'm not, then go in!
If the plot for Halloween Kills would tell us anything, it's that Samuel Loomis had to be stopped from killing Michael Myers, rather than aiding him in any arrest. And on Halloween 1978, Loomis arrived in Haddonfield with a gun, giving off the impression that he was there to kill Michael and not help him. I feel like there is no way to argue around this underlying theme of supernatural killer, but with the inclusion of Dr. Samuel Loomis being a psychiatrist, it adds a mental health connection to the plot, even if we don't believe that has anything to do with why Michael would kill.
Hey, get your ass downstairs and wash your hands, you little shit. I'm not listening.
Psycho boy. Cat killer. You really torture and kill only worthless animals.
But what exactly would that really cover? Antipsychotics would suggest there were signs of schizophrenic symptoms, seeing things which aren't there, strange delusions, or at least an antisocial personality disorder, specifically in which shows he has a lack of empathy, callousness, risk taker, and a highly unlawful person. But at the very least, if none of these are true, he definitely was in some sort of state of psychosis, because it almost had seemed like he didn't have any idea he had even killed his sister Judith. And I read something before on this thing called Countertransferance. There could be a discussion on if Loomis was letting his own issues get in the way of helping Michael. With the way countertransference works would be when a psychiatrist has personal reactions toward their client. Example would be like Loomis shouting and screaming, or taking on the role of like some sort of police officer or some sort of detective, when in reality this wasn't his role to play. And I understand that he is a major part of how Michael Myers becomes apprehended through all these films, but if this was a real case, this wouldn't even be close to appropriate. And again, we're just looking at it. If it wasn't a film, Loomis comes off at times rash, like he's ready to burst. Many theories float around that Loomis turned Michael into the killer that we know he is.
Michael, it will destroy you too. One day, Michael.
Even pointing to the fact that Loomis got amusement in scaring the kids outside the Myers house, which we can say it's Halloween, so look, fair enough. I'm not so certain there's a side to Loomis that was as dark as Michael was, but I see at times there was a darkness inside him. I've heard he had a wife at some point, or even the beginning of Halloween H2O. Nurse Marion Chambers was living with him in his house, which was letting us know they had started a cheeky little relationship of some sorts, and when his room was trashed, that basically meant that they stayed in the same house. So would Marion really date a man that was as evil as we're talking about in the video? No, because
I have the feeling that you're way off on this.
But then again,
You have the wrong feeling.
But in terms of the film, Halloween was always meant to be this anthology series, meaning every film after the first one would be unrelated except for the fact that it takes place on Halloween. Neither of these two characters were meant to be more than what they clearly were. From the night Michael murdered his sister Judith to the night he broke out at Smithsgrove Sanitarium, there are only two people who would know the history between Michael Myers and Dr. Samuel Loomis, and Michael Myers couldn't speak or chose not to speak, so Dr. Samuel Loomis was the one who would paint the picture, describing Michael, a kid, as somebody with the devil's eyes or the personification of evil, when in reality Michael looked pretty shaken up outside his home. Was he really the personification of evil, or is that what Loomis wanted him to be? Realistically, I'd be disappointed to ever find out an answer to that question, and that's what I think the beauty of media is, like theories and such. It doesn't change my view on anything towards the film, and the fact that Rob Zombie's Dr. Samuel Loomis was meant to be the more mean doctor tells me that John Carpenter's was actually meant to be the nicer one. I think the true dark side of Dr. Samuel Loomis doesn't necessarily exist in the first storyline. The remake, that's a whole different book. Donald Pleasence done a fantastic job in taking this character to such important lengths, as the plot would change considerably throughout the history of the series. So if anything is true, then perhaps it's that we're better off not really knowing the answer. Anyhow, if you like horror films, consider subscribing. Be more than happy to have you here.
I don't want anyone to have to live through that night again. He's gone.
You're talking about him as if he were a human being.
If you don't find him in 4 hours, I'm sure I will.
Dr. Samuel Loomis is like Michael's shadow. And Michael is a reflection of not only his own darkness, but the light that Loomis attempted to create through years of therapy. There isn't good without bad, same way there isn't bad without good. And with chaos there's peace, and Loomis was a build-up to Michael's filmatic climax. And he fits entirely into the second side of Michael's mystery. I don't think you can ask for much more than that. I would love to hear what Sigmund Freud thinks though.